And welcome to America's Heroes Group, our roundtable this week with our partner Jesse Brown, VA Works. August is National Wellness Month. I had to change the page there. Today is Saturday, August 13, 2022. This is Sean Claiborne, the co-host. The host you just heard on the top of the hour was Cliff Kelley. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have a great show for you today. And also, don't forget to look at us on Facebook Live or live streaming right now. And also, newly launched our YouTube channel. Go and check out us on YouTube and see our archive shows, or all our old shows are on YouTube and also on Facebook, and also our website as well. So we have our panelists with us today, Dr. Anthony Acosta. He's an attending emergency medicine physician at Jesse Brown VA, and he serves as a geriatric physician and the champion of geriatrics. He works at the emergency medicine medical student coordinator at the VA, and also is a field surgeon for the Joint Forces of Medical Detachment of the Illinois Army National Guard. How you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
It's my pleasure. So tell us what you want to talk about as far as what's going on with the Geriatric Emergency Department accreditation. What's new at Jesse Brown, from my understanding, is something that's brand new at the Jesse Brown VA?
Yes. So a couple of years ago, the National VA Geriatric Emergency Medicine Council decided that they wanted to start to engage the local emergency departments in geriatric care. Currently, about 50% or half of our veterans are over the age of 65. And so it was important for us to provide safe patient care and good quality care to our older veterans. And so we became part of this program, and we started working on getting accredited through the American College of Emergency Physicians.
So you say about 50% of veterans are over 65 right now. So our veteran population is getting older, as is the general population in this country. What are some of the challenges that you see with caring for an older and aging generation?
So our geriatric veterans, our older veterans, sometimes their complaints are a little bit more vague. So it's harder to tease out why they're presenting. Their functional mobility is declining. There's polypharmacy. They're on a lot of medications. And so as we get older in general, and as our veterans get older, the care becomes a little bit more complex, and we want to make sure we're providing quality care to our veterans and to our older population.
Okay. And what are some of the things that you see are most common with veterans that are older?
For the chief complaints for the emergency department, that they run the gamut. I mean, it could be falls, it could be chest pain, shortness of breath. Right now, given the current state of the pandemic, COVID is a big one. But we see the very same presentations at the VA of our older population that we do in the general ERs. So chest pain, shortness of breath, the very typical bread and butter emergency medicine.
Mm-hmm. And then, so when you did your work with the Army National Guard, so you're a field surgeon for the Army National Guard, how does that transfer over to what you do at the emergency room?
Well, I think it's why I enjoy working for the VA, right? As a military physician, I enjoy taking care of my soldiers. That's part of the joy of doing the work, and being at the VA allows me to transition that to what essentially is my civilian role. And so I can take that same enjoyment of caring for my soldiers, and on the National Guard side, I can bring that to the care at the VA. And it is a enjoyable type of work for me, at least. Yes.
Let me ask you this, a personal question, if I have your permission. Have you been deployed?
So I was overseas last year. I was in Ukraine. Before all of this happened, I was a task force surgeon for the 33rd Infantry Brigade Combat Team. I was their task force surgeon. As a physician, I deployed for 3 months, and so I was out there in Lviv, Ukraine for 3 months. It's almost been, it's more than a year at this point.
Okay, so 708th Med still part of the 33rd Brigade? Is that,
Excuse me?
The 708th Medical Battalion, is that still part of that brigade?
No, we're 708. I don't think they are. Honestly, I don't know.
That was my old unit. That's why I remember for a quick minute, I thought we were attached to you guys before I got out. I got out in 2004, roughly around there. That's when I was actually let go. But 2001 actually was supposed to ETS. But that's another story. So when you're doing like triage and things for older veterans? What are some of the things that doctors who maybe don't have a lot of experience with the military population maybe want to consider when they're treating older veterans in their hospitals? Because a lot of veterans that are older are using civilian hospitals, but some veterans feel more comfortable going to a VA hospital.
Sure. I think one of the things that we had to do for obtaining accreditation with ASAP for our geriatric emergency medicine program was we had to create a quality care initiative. And one of the things that we found with our veterans was that sometimes they would come in for chest pain or shortness of breath, but they wouldn't tell us that they were having trouble walking or there was a functional decline and they weren't safe at home. And so as part of our program, we created our fall risk screening program. And so all of our veterans currently who come into Jesse Brown VA who are over the age of 75 get screened for a fall risk. So we ask them, do you feel unsteady when you walk? Have you fallen in the last year? And if they answer yes to one of the three questions we asked, then they screen positive for a fall risk. It lets our team know that we need to address that before they go, because sometimes my dad is Marine Corps, serving the Marine Corps. My uncle, he'd be a little stubborn, right? I'm not trying to make a blanket statement, but they're not going to tell you outright that they're having issues walking, and so they sometimes we need to bring that out of them. And so that's how we address that as part of our program, was with the fall risk and specifically asking them, are you safe? Do you feel safe walking? And so I think that's one thing to keep in mind, taking care of our veterans, is that sometimes there's a bit of there's some pride involved in letting you know that they might need help. And so asking specific questions may lead you to better care, essentially.
And then psychologically for older veterans, because we always hear about the number 22 a day, 22 suicides a day and so on. That number goes back and forth. Some people say 20, some people say 22 or more. A lot of those people don't realize a lot of those veterans that are committing suicide are seniors. They're from the Vietnam era. They're from the Korean War era even. So when you see signs where people are coming in, and especially one thing there's always, and we think about not necessarily as a stereotype, but we think about losing your faculties, your mental faculties as you get older, as an older veteran. What do you see from the front lines of treating veterans who are seniors psychologically, mentally, and how they're treating themselves in their everyday life?
Can you ask that question again?
So how are veterans caring for themselves? Are they doing a good enough job as seniors? We're looking at the Vietnam era veterans who are maybe suffering from maybe depression, or maybe they're alone, maybe they don't have anyone to talk to. How are they handling that? When they come in to see you, are you recognizing and seeing these things? Are you seeing a trend in any kind of way of how older veterans are taking care of themselves?
So I think my views are a little skewed, right? I see the veterans who have access to our system, and so those veterans who are Vietnam era that need help, they're coming in and requesting help. And so I think there's plenty of veterans out there who don't have the resources, or who don't know that the resources are there for them if they need them. When I see a veteran that comes in who I feel or my teammates feel need psychiatric care, we have care at Jesse Brown 24/7. I can call the psychiatry team to come down and help assess. We have social work accessible. And so, I think from my perspective, I see the veterans who are coming in asking for help, but I know that there's being on the National Guard side and dealing with soldiers who don't have access to VA care yet, who don't have those resources yet. I know that there are veterans out there struggling. And so I guess that's another point to keep in mind when you're caring for older veterans, or any veteran or any currently serving member. If they come through your ER, just to keep that in mind, that there may be other issues going on that need to be addressed, and that, the VAs are out there to help. And so maybe if in your civilian practice you can't take care of them, we are here and willing to take over.
There's one thing you'd like to see as your first mission in your field. This is a new accreditation for the Jesse Brown VA. So what is your goal and your mission? Like, first off, what's your first task in trying to get this accomplished?
So the first task was to identify what we felt was something that was needed to be addressed within our ER, right? Specific to Jesse Brown. We have a lot of older veterans. Nationally, the VA sees about 50% geriatric cases. For us, it's right around the same, 49%. And so We, as a team, identified falls as something we were concerned with, and we wanted to make sure we were making veterans safer, right? So as they come into our ER, addressing something that maybe we were missing, right? We know that veterans are coming in for falls, but we're also taking care of veterans that are coming in for other things that that may have safety issues going home. So I think the first and foremost attempt was to make safety it always is a priority, but making sure our veterans were safe when they leave us, right? So that was the main intent of the program. And then from here, this allows us to get numbers. How many of our veterans are screening positive moving forward, right? How many veterans over the age of 75 are screening positive? And are there specific things now that we can identify that we can address moving forward, right? Are we seeing veterans that need more physical therapy? And so can we collaborate with our physical therapy department to have somebody see these veterans after they leave our department? Or is it a polypharmacy issue, and do we need to bring pharmacy in? So I think this first step was a chance for us to identify something we felt we needed to identify and then build off of moving forward.
I think that's really powerful what you guys are doing. And one thing that you mentioned, a couple of things, which brings me the curious question, and the reason I'm asking you these questions, and we've had other doctors on before, is because you're the first doctor that I've ever talked to who's actually specializing with the senior community and specializing in taking care of our older veterans. So are veterans, in your mind, from what you've seen in your experience, are older veterans doing a good enough job keeping up with their medications and doing their physical therapy?
So it's a struggle, right? On any given shift, I'll see a veteran who's on 21 medications that they need to be. It's not that they're on unnecessary medications. And sometimes the veterans I'll ask them, why are you missing doses? Or they'll come in for worsening of their chronic condition, and I'll ask them, what happened? They're like, it's too many medications. I can't keep track, right? We have programs to help some of those veterans if they qualify. Home health nurses. Our pharmacists are fantastic. Our ED pharmacists will work with them. Maybe it's putting things in packets so that they have everything, punch out packets, and they don't have to worry about what type of medications they take. And so the resources are there, but it definitely as our veterans get older, some of these things become much more nuanced, and they need more help. And so if the support isn't there, if the resources aren't there, hopefully that's where we can step in and provide some of that.
How about on the physical therapy side of it?
So mobility, part of the accreditation was making sure we had access to mobility aids 24/7, right? Because as veterans come in, they can come in at 2 and 3 in the morning for a fall at home, and they needed access, or they don't have a cane, or they don't have a walker. So part of the accreditation was making sure our emergency department had access to those devices 24/7 to hand out before a veteran left our ER if they were going home that day. But there are veterans who do require occupational therapy, physical therapy, and we have a very strong PM&R program at the VA, and the veterans who need access to that care, they're getting it. One of the next steps of all of this geriatric focused programming and the fall risk is how do we are we identifying more veterans that are at risk for falling that need PT that aren't getting this addressed, right? And so if we identify that as something that's going on, we're ready to make the next steps to pursue more of a relationship with the ED and physical therapy moving forward.
Now, and this is another kind of somewhat semi-personal question, but really more about your experience. Do seniors have, from your polling, and maybe you did this not intentionally or asking people directly, of course, but do seniors tend to have a discomfort or not be happy with the word geriatric?
I haven't seen that. I don't typically refer to my veterans as geriatric, right? I know I've gone into the room and I've discussed, let's say, chest pain with the patient, and I said, hey, look, based on your age, you're at higher risk, right? You're older. And they're like, no, I'm not, I'm younger, right? They'll correct me right away. They'll tell me I'm not, I take care of veterans that are in their 80s, 90s that are still fully independent, still driving, right? And so I know they will, they'll take me to task if they don't like a word that I'm using. They're not afraid to tell me. But I definitely, when I go into a room or I'm talking to family, I don't use the word geriatric. I think that's more of a academic term. I'll tend to tell them, hey, you're based on your risk factors, you being a little bit older is usually how I say it. I would never say, you being geriatric, although,
Although it's out
it could
there, you hear
happen.
that term does fly around every now and again. Certain hospitals won't name any names, but certain sometimes in the civilian world we don't quite get that, see that same respect. So do you now with older people who are older, people who are senior veterans, are they doing a good enough job of taking advantage of the technology that the VA system is now trying to roll out? Because I know the VA system is trying to get more technology savvy, use more tools that can help people connect with their doctors or nurses and get care. How is the senior community grabbing this?
So I don't, being an emergency medicine doc, I'm not involved in so that would be more of the primary care side, right? And so being a emergency medicine physician, I'm not the one that's doing the telehealth visits. And although I will say that the VA was, they have been trying to get all of, or at this point, we all should be trained in using the telehealth system and having that available for our veterans. From my perspective, when I'm seeing a veteran in the ER, and I'm looking through their chart and seeing visits, I see that there's telehealth visits available. I've seen that veterans are utilizing that resource. Some of our older veterans who have a hard time coming into the VA are maybe getting their, follow-up appointment via telehealth, so they're not having to come into the VA. And so that's from my perspective, but I think that might be a better question for the primary care guys who are out there actually seeing these veterans on a day-to-day basis and engaging on the telehealth side. I will say that that there are more veterans that I feel like are using the My Health Vet, which is our online portal to access care. And so I've had, this is anecdote, I don't know numbers, but I've had some of my older veterans say, hey, when will this be available in my portal, right? So these are older veterans that typically would stereotypically be, not used to using technology, but they seem definitely engaged, and they're accessing their portal and they're finding their information, and they know that it'll be posted shortly after their ER visit. So, from my perspective, at least, it's just end of one anecdote. It seems like some of the veterans are catching on and utilizing the technology a little bit more.
So walk me through a typical night when you're at the ER. So I'm guessing you're not getting gunshot wounds. When we think of ER, we think of and especially in a city like Chicago, you're thinking about all kinds of just really crazy stuff in the middle of the night that people end up, having these bad ailments. What do you normally see in a VA situation, particularly in a market as big as ours in Chicago?
So it runs the gamut, right? If a veteran feels like he can get to me safely, he's going to drive, right? I've had veterans come in with a full-blown breathing issue like COPD, where they probably should have gone to their closest hospital, and they'll drive 45 minutes from Indiana because they prefer getting care at the VA. And so you can have pretty much anything can walk through that door, right? We have the shortness of breath, the chest pain, and sometimes Chicago Fire, they will, if you are a veteran and you identify yourself as a veteran and they feel like the transport time is safe and they feel like they are not overutilizing their resources, they can transport a veteran to the VA. So my last shift, I think I had 3 runs from the Chicago Fire Department. And the Jesse Brown VA, we're not a STEMI receiving center. We're not a stroke receiving center, right? So those are hospitals that are set up to take ambulance runs that are in the field. They're called a stroke, or in the field they're called a STEMI, but that doesn't mean that we're not prepared to take care of those things if they walk through the door, right? Mm-hmm. I've had plenty of patients that come in with chest pain that I've identified as a heart attack on their EKG, and we call our cardiology team, and they take the patient to the cath lab, and they get the same care they would get in any other hospital. Mm-hmm. The only difference between us and any other community ER is that we typically care for the adult veteran, right? That's our niche. And so any veteran who walks through that door and identifies themselves and says they want emergency care, they will be taken back to us or to our fast track area, depending on their complaint. And we are more than ready and willing to take care of them. We've had veterans who didn't realize we weren't a trauma center come in with gunshot wounds in the middle of the night, or a stab to a non-critical part of the body, thinking that we have trauma surgery on call. We have Cook County or Stroger now right down the street. So in those cases, we stabilize the veteran as best we can. And then usually we're on the phone with Stroger saying, hey, I have a veteran who has trauma. I've stabilized him. I need to send him over to you guys, and we send him.
I think that's amazing how people, especially, and I've seen this before. I wanted to give you guys some credit. I had a friend of mine who passed away, who's an Army veteran. He was just right after the Vietnam era. So we have to wrap up really quick. We're running out of time. But I remember we got on the phone. He was having some health issue. We got on the phone with a nurse, and she said, if you don't get him to the hospital tonight, he's not going to wake up tomorrow. And we got him in there, and they took care of him, and he had the best care I'd ever seen. So my hat's off to you guys. You guys deserve a salute. Really appreciate your time. Dr. Anthony Acosta is an emergency attending medicine physician at the Jesse Brown VA. Thank you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it, and thank you for letting me talk about the geriatric program a little bit.
Anytime. This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Cliff Kelley, Vietnam veteran and host of America's Heroes Group, the game changer in radio, print, and digital media programming. We are a roundtable talk show where information, resources, and referrals are provided intentionally every Saturday to empower our military population on WVON 1690 AM, the iHeart Radio app from 4 to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Please visit our website at www.americashg.org. What's going on? What's going on? Hi, this is Cliff Kelley, the host of America's Heroes Group. If you or a loved one has been injured in an accident or the result of malpractice, you have only one chance to get the compensation you deserve. You need a law firm you can trust with experience and resources who will fight on your behalf. With a proven track record of excellence both in and out of the courtroom, call Seidman, Margulis, and Fairman at 312-781-1977 for a free consultation, or visit SeidmanLaw.net. That's Seidman, SEIDMAN, law.net.
Hello, this is Darren Jeffrey. I was the course creator for American Ninja Warrior on NBC. I'm also a founding board member for the Rick Harriman Foundation, or RHF. RHF is proud to partner with America's Heroes Group in bringing you this year's RHF Ninja Warrior O course, free for active and retired military families, September 10th and 17th at Rick's Place, located 5 minutes from the front gate of Fort Bragg, Fayetteville, North Carolina. If you're a ninja or wish to volunteer at this event, visit rhfnow.org/ninja and register. If you would like to thank these incredible men and women in uniform and their families, be a sponsor. Visit rhfnow.org/sponsor and come on out and meet the RHF family.
Hey Cliff, where can a veteran business owner go on the south side of Chicago for breakfast, lunch, and dinner meetings?
I'm a veteran, and that's an easy answer. Pearl's Place on 39th and Michigan. Pearl's Place has free parking available across the street. Reasonably priced, quality food that tastes delicious. Veteran owners, there's no place like Pearl's Place.
Service Women Who Serve is proud to partner with Cliff Kelley and the American Heroes Group as an influencer of social change through advocacy, activism, and examination of legacy for military and veterans. We stand as paradigm-shifting thought leaders, believing social justice is grounded in hope.
Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelley and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. The Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Back to America's Heroes Group with our roundtable and our partner, the Chicago Regional Office of Veteran Benefits Administration. August is National Wellness Month, and today is Saturday, August 13th, 2022. You just heard our host during the break, Cliff Kelley, and also I am Sean Claiborne, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And then also we have our panelists on the line, Justyna Barry. She's a U.S. Army Iraq combat veteran, and the Chicago Regional Office Public Contact Representative. And we have Donnis Overton. She's a U.S. Army combat veteran and a U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs Public Contact Team member. We're going to talk about military environmental exposures to burn pits, also the legislation that's been approved recently, and how veterans benefits claims can be processed. And filed. So let's talk about that. How you guys doing?
Hi, good afternoon.
Glad to have you guys on the line.
Thank you for having us. How are you doing?
Pretty good, very, very good. So tell us, so this past Wednesday, Biden signed into law. We have our president signed into law with the PACT Act, and then now we have the help that we will hopefully need to get more people the aid and care that there was for so many years, talking about decades now, they have not been getting because they've been exposed to toxic chemicals, breathing it in, getting it into their bodies, and it's been affecting them, getting them cancer, mixing it with their lungs, all kinds of horrible things. Tell us what we need to know in order to get approvals done.
Hi. So I would just first like to say that the PACT Act is the largest healthcare and benefit expansion in the VA history. And I do want to let you guys know that you guys should look up the name of it, which it was named after Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson, honoring our promise to address comprehensive toxics, which is, the acronym for PACT. But if you actually look up Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson and his story, it's just very, very deep and sad. And I'm so glad and proud to work for the VA. And I'm so proud that this, act was passed.
If you can, give us a little bit of insight as to Heath's story. I wanted to, because there's a lot of people I wanted to recognize. I'm glad you did it first. There's tons of people that are in on this for over a decade, fighting for this type of legislation to help people get this done. And also, like I said, this is something that millions of veterans have been exposed to over and over again and on their tours of duty and deployments overseas.
Yes. So Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson served in the Ohio National Guard. He was a very healthy young man, served in the military, was exposed to toxic exposures, was denied service connection for respiratory conditions, and he pretty much suffered. And that's why they named the act after him. And he's the pioneer of this. The PACT Act, expands the healthcare and eligibility. It expands 20 new presumptive conditions for burn pits and other toxic exposures. It adds presumptive exposure locations for Agent Orange and radiation, which is huge. So I know I'm kind of, skipping a little bit, but the Agent Orange portion is that it opens up 5 new locations for Agent Orange presumptive conditions. And the first one that I want to talk about is on any U.S. or Royal Thai military base in Thailand. If you served in any of those places between January 9th, 1962 and June 30th, 1976, please come and see us so we can refile your claim and, get you service connected. So Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Guam or American Samoa, and the Johnston Atoll is the 5 new Agent Orange presumptive locations.
And just to make sure I put in the correct name to the correct voice. This is Justyna Berry?
Yes.
Okay. You're a U.S. Army Iraq combat veteran. So in your tours of duty as an Iraq combat veteran, how much exposure do you feel you had to these burn pits?
Well, when I was in the service, I was in the Army, I was military police, and we were a platoon that was, in an outpost. We were at JSS McHenry, which was a joint base with the Iraqi police, and we were doing PT around, where they were burning the garbage and everything else. They were throwing in Humvee batteries. They were throwing in uniforms. Just anything and everything went into the burn pit. And of course, in the Army, you have to stay on your PT and, make sure you pass your PT test. So they had us running around the perimeter of the base, which was all burning trash.
And then what your memories are, what did it smell like to you?
Not good. It smelled like trash, burning trash and smoke, And then also, I'm sure Donnis knows when you go outside the wire and you go on missions, you're sitting as a gunner, your head is out. We weren't wearing masks. You're breathing in all that fresh air, and it's, it's burn pits. It's all the particles getting into your lungs.
So as a person who's been through that, and once again, I've never been deployed, so my experience with chemicals, I've had a lot of experience for jobs I've taken where I've been exposed to things like similar to burn pits and other things, which you never get that smell out of your head. Like when I think about it, I still think of that. To me, I describe some of those smells as somebody took some rotten eggs and lit them with lighter fluid, or like maybe,
right.
you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what pops into my mind. It's like, what the hell is that smell? And you look on the horizon, you see that big ass cloud of spilling black smoke, But then,
right.
On the flip side of that, so now we have this act that's been passed. Now, what is the first thing that veterans need to be doing in order to make sure? Because we had this conversation before the show, is that when you are healthy, and I never thought about this, when you're healthy, you think everything is good. And then all of a sudden you get older. So what do we need to do?
Yep. So the first thing that I would recommend all our veterans to do is sign up for an account on va.gov and possibly request a copy of your file and see what you were denied for. I'm pretty sure that on va.gov it does show what conditions you were previously denied for, but I'm always going to harp on this. Find out why you were denied. What is the actual reason why you were denied? Because as you know, for service connection, we need 3 things: in-service event, current condition. Once you have those 2 things, you file a claim. We'll set up an exam where we'll determine if there's a nexus between the 2. But, the presumptive conditions kind of change all of that because we don't need the third part, which is the link.
Okay. And then why is it so important for people? I know there's a registry as well. Is that still necessary?
Donnis, do you know?
As far as the registry, I would say yes, because it still is a way to track conditions, not only for Vietnam veterans, but for also Gulf War veterans as well, who are also affected by this PACT Act. It's a tool that is utilized in order for the examiners to be able to see what conditions that a large group of people are suffering from that may not be on the presumptive list. And in the event that these large group of individuals is suffering from conditions that are not on this presumptive list, then that's a possibility that those conditions can be added to the presumptive list. So for me, my advice would be is if you serve anywhere in the Gulf or during the Vietnam era, I would most certainly sign up for that burn pit registry and go for that exam, because you just never know.
And then with this list of presumptives, is it going to be easier for veterans to get treatment, and then will they need less documentation? So I'm guessing from what I understand about this is that all this, prove that you were here, prove this was done, prove that, prove this. In this particular case, if you were there at that particular theater or combat zone, you are going to be approved.
Correct. As long as you have the condition diagnosed and you served in the area of operations that's presumptive, you don't need the nexus. So it makes it a lot easier. Thank you for bringing that up.
And that's a huge thing for a lot of veterans, because there's always this, for veterans who have been denied benefits before. We're not even talking about disability benefits. Like, it's not about the monthly checks. It's about just getting something taken care of at the VA and getting the extensive care and treatments and the resources available to get your health care straight. The big fear is I got to prove all this stuff. I have to go through and drag out all this information, get all these records that I don't even have, and then they're going to tell me no. It's going to take months and months and months to do this, or maybe even a few years to do this, and they're going to tell me no. How long should it take now if someone says, okay, I have these symptoms, I want to get care? How long does it take for them to actually start getting care, do you expect?
Well, it depends on the condition because I know the VA Medical Center has done a lot for mental health treatment. I know for mental health, you don't necessarily need to be service connected depending on the situation to get treatment for that condition. But the average for claims is about 125 days. That's the goal. But, I mean, we're still dealing with, the COVID pandemic and, there are some delays with, depending on what you claim, there can be a delay in receiving your benefits. But I think the key is to get your intent to file in, work your claim, like gather your evidence, and submit, a complete application to us as soon as you can.
Does it make sense if a person doesn't have symptoms now, or hasn't suffered, or maybe doesn't know that they have symptoms, for them to file an intent to file claim, or messing up the terminology? But does it make sense for them to start that process?
Sure, they can always do an intent to file because the intent to file will preserve the date of claim where they have to submit the complete application. So if today I got on va.gov, I'm the veteran, and I submit, I start my application but I don't complete it, that will put in the system an intent to file. Or if I call the 1-800 number and I talk to the call center and I say, hey, I would like to file a claim in the future, they're going to put it in the system, and that will give me 1 complete year to submit a complete application. So that'll give me time to gather my evidence and, maybe come see us at the regional office, come see your service officer, see what you have to do to file a complete application.
What types of evidence do they need to provide?
I think the key that's missing with a lot of veterans is the current condition. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot of veterans think that they need to have, a medically diagnosed condition, but how they can go kind of around that is they can tell us about the symptoms that they're having of a condition. So because of the COVID pandemic, a lot of veterans didn't go for treatment. The VA was, closed down, or they had limited, opportunities to see a healthcare provider. So they can write a statement about their current symptoms, and that will work as evidence of a current condition, unless it's something that needs to be diagnosed through medical evidence, such as a cancer. Mm-hmm. Then we need medical evidence for that. But if I'm an Iraq veteran and I'm having shortness of breath all of a sudden going up and down stairs, I'm competent enough to write a statement about what I'm feeling, and mm-hmm. how long I've been having this condition. And the VA will use that as medical evidence.
And then, so what if a person goes through this and say, for example, like I was diagnosed with histoplasmosis maybe like 4 years ago. That's a very strange, weird, odd, rare, I guess, lung issue, whatever. Don't know where that came from, how I got it, but I was diagnosed with it. If I were to go through that system today and then say, for example, they say, well, you have histoplasmosis, you don't have, the bronchitis, I think it was called, what do they call it now? They call it restrictive bronchitis.
Bronchitis. Mm-hmm.
So if I don't have that, will I be kicked out of the system, or how will that work from what you know?
So each claim is kind of different. So like maybe in your case, I would ask you to provide, like, what do you think caused that condition? So let's say you were living in the barracks or something like that on active duty, and, sometimes they have you sign some kind of asbestos, like registry or something like that. I've seen that in records before, for especially the Navy folks. So it just depends on what you were exposed to.
Mm-hmm. So are you guys hopeful? Go ahead, Donnis. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I also want to point out, I know that you inquired about health care. I will say this to you and all veterans or anyone listening. If you are experiencing any type of symptoms or anything that you think or that might cause an issue later, or something that you're not sure that you could file for, go to the doctor. You don't necessarily have to go to the VA either. And even if you do go to the VA and they say you don't have to be service connected to go to the VA. Let's put that out there. You do not have to be service connected to be seen at the VA. What happens is, just like any other hospital, you'll have a copay, or they might have you pay for your medication or something, but the price is not going to be astronomical as if you went to an emergency room. You might have to pay like $10 or $20, but you do not have to wait. If you have any symptoms, go and be seen, because you might need those records later. They might be vital, a year or two later on down the road.
Wow. I think that's really important that what you mentioned, Donnis, because a lot of people have that misconception, particularly people from the Reserves and National Guard, is that if I go to the VA and it's not service connected, I'm going to be getting a bill in the mail, or they're going to say you can't come in.
Nope, I went through it in the beginning. I was in the Army Reserve, and I got called to active duty twice. But before then, what helped me get service connected is because I had an event happen while I was on a drill weekend. So they didn't turn me around at the door and say, you're not service connected. They just invited me on in, and I had to pay for my medication, which was $20. So
that's good.
Again, I just want to put it out there so that they know, because I hear that a lot too at the VA, or they think that they can't be seen at the VA because they did not go overseas, or they didn't serve during a war, in a war specifically, and that's not true. That's not true at all.
So where do we get that misconception from? Why do we have this misconception?
Honestly, I see a lot of it on social media. And I honestly, I didn't even know they were out there until I became a veteran service officer. And I was shocked myself. So I have no idea, because when I left service, they told us, to go to the VA immediately. So, wow. If anything happened, they harped on that in my unit. So in both of them. So I don't know exactly where. I do hear a lot of false things when I'm at the VA. But I work at the regional office, so I'll go over there for lunch sometimes, and I hear veterans talking amongst themselves, and they say things that are not always the truth. Also, there's certain, it's just a lack of knowledge, because people don't, take the time out to read or listen or ask the personnel who are, really well versed in this type of thing. I would encourage everybody out there who is listening, if you are unsure, you can make an appointment to come in and see us on va.gov. You can also call the National Contact Center and make an appointment for us to give you a call if you cannot come in, and that number is 1-800-827-1000, and this is where we will give you set up a time for us to give you a call. It is not a video. It is a phone call, and we're not bill collectors, so it will show up as a 1-800 number, but you can set up a time for us to call you and discuss general benefit questions or address any questions that you may have, or make an appointment to come see us, or do research on va.gov. Anything that everybody, wants to know, even family members of veterans, survivors. If you go to va.gov and anything you want to know about, type that in the search bar. It's a beautiful tool, and I guarantee some things are going to come up, some links are going to come up that will, give you some general knowledge or guide you in a direction to the regional offices or even the local the service organizations that are there to assist you.
So I see a lot of commercials on TV about joining the military, and I see a lot of commercials about all the things some of the things that the military is doing, and there's all kinds of stuff in public media and social media and things like that. Does the VA do a good enough job getting the information and resources out there through their media networks and outlets? America's Heroes Group, we're a not-for-profit. We do what we do. But what is the VA and what is the VA system doing to get their message out there so people know and have the information that they can, sign up because of the PACT Act and get treatment for their breathing discomforts and breathing issues and things like that, or just knowing that you can just go to the VA and get treated?
Okay, so it's things like this. Most importantly, what the VA is doing right now is outreaches. Like tomorrow, me and Justyna, will be at the fair out in Springfield, readily available to set up an appointment, file incentive files, and talk to veterans about, things that they may have questions for. Also, there are, again, there is VA.gov, which is a vital tool. And for those of us who are older and who may not know, they can always set up a virtual appointment to have us call them just for general information. But for us at the VA, outreaches are extremely important, and we do outreaches for, with a multitude of organizations, everywhere from, the fair. We was at the, last month we went to the Armory over on 55th at the stand down. And, if there's anybody out there that would like us to come to their establishment to talk to veterans, then please get, you all can set up an appointment to have us give you a call and talk to us about that, or, reach out to us via email. My email is donnis.overton@va.gov, which is DONNIS.OVERTON@va.gov. And Justyna as well.
We need to do an event in order to bring people together and bring veterans together so we can, get some of the information out there. Because even when you talk to a lot of the American Legions and a lot of the VFWs, there's not, some of the smaller ones don't have the information you just talked about. So we got to get out there. We got to set up some kind of event. Have you ever seen a Veterans Affairs or Veterans Benefits Administration or a VA commercial? Is there one out there that exists?
I personally have not. I'm not a big TV girl.
I have. I've seen one, but only for recruiting for careers, which based on the SPAC Act. There's a lot of job opportunities coming. So, I would look up on YouTube. There's a Veterans Benefits Administration channel.
I have seen that. I have seen the VBA channel on YouTube. That's been pretty cool. And also you can check out America's Heroes Group. Go to our website, and look at our old YouTube videos or Facebook. Check us out. Check out some of the organizations like the VSOs, like the DAV, Disabled American Veterans. Great place, great VSO. Now, for how much do you think you're going to rely on the VSOs now? Because I can imagine a floodgate. Because there's 3.5 million vets I think that are on this that are registered now, something like that, for exposure to toxic chemicals?
Yes, I believe you are correct. I would say always reach out. If you have a service officer, always reach out to them. But, knowing that they may be, overextended, you can always take matters into your own hands and get on va.gov. Come see us at the public contact team. And, each case is different. So we can help you with your individual case. And I think that's the biggest key in all of this, is that each claim is different and each case is specific. So we would love to help you guys out.
I appreciate that. And then also, not to get on my soapbox again, but I say this every time we have this conversation about veterans benefits. If, like I said this earlier today, before the show, if I fell down in this radio station today, there would be aid and help and medical care for me. That I wouldn't have to go and prove that I was at a certain place, a certain time. I just go file a claim with my insurance company at my job, and I would get covered. They would treat me. Might have a copay, whatever. And granted, it gives me more comfort to have more knowledge that you can walk into a VA hospital and get care that way. But why is there so much? Why is this process in place where when you have, before this act was passed, if you had cancer or if you were suffering from what seems logically a connection to a burn pit or exposure to toxic fumes, knowing this is in your work history as a military service member, why is there this process still in place where you have to prove that something is service connected to get certain benefits?
Well, I think that prior to this PACT Act, how it worked is that a veteran, even myself, when I claimed my asthma condition, I claimed it directly due to burn pits. And then what the VA did is they requested an exam, and they asked the examiner, is her current asthma related to burn pits? And then it kind of puts it back on the examiner to explain if it's service-connected and why or why not. This way, it's presumptive. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So now we're not asking the doctor if it's due to service. Now we have a law that protects that. So it kind of just changed things.
And thank God it did. Ms. Donnis Overton, U.S. Army Combat Veteran and U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs Public Contact Team Member, and also our panelist, Justyna Berry, she's a U.S. Iraq Combat Veteran and the Chicago Regional Office Public Contact Representative. Thank you for your time and also this great information. And we got to connect and do something.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
My pleasure. This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.
Welcome to America's Heroes Group. Hear your voice where we connect the disconnected intentionally.
We have in our chase bags, we have a care package of hygiene, we have shaving equipment, we have razors, and for the women we have the same personal hygiene items for them as well. And we want to say thank you for their service. This is Chase Bank. Thank you very much. People in the neighborhood, free haircuts, and service, and food. Look good. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Thank you, ma'am. Okay.
On behalf of Cliff Kelley, America's Heroes Group, we sincerely thank Chase Bank for coming where it matters to help homeless veterans have a hot meal today and a care package. We are sincerely grateful for this partnership. Yes. Yes.
population on WVON 1690 AM, the iHeart Radio app from 4 to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Please visit our website at www.americashg.org.
Hello, this is Darren Jeffrey. I was the course creator for American Ninja Warrior on NBC. I'm also a founding board member for the Rick Harriman Foundation, or RHF. RHF is proud to partner with America's Heroes Group in bringing you this year's RHF Ninja Warrior O course, free for active and retired military families, September 10th and 17th at Rick's Place, located 5 minutes from the front gate of Fort Bragg, Fayetteville, North Carolina. If you're a ninja or wish to volunteer at this event, visit rhfnow.org/ninja and register. If you would like to thank these incredible men and women in uniform and their families, be a sponsor. Visit rhfnow.org/sponsor and come on out and meet the RHF family.
From the Xfinity Studios at WVON, it's America's Heroes Group, hosted by Cliff Kelley, with co-host Dr. Damon Arnold and National Guard veteran Sean Claiborne on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Welcome back to America's Heroes Group, our roundtable. She serves, she matters, with our partner NWVU, which is the National Women Veterans United. August is National Wellness Month. Today is Saturday, August 13th, 2022. Our host is Cliff Kelley. I'm Sean Claiborne, Army National Guard veteran and co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have our partner on the line, a familiar voice you've heard before many times over the years in this show. That is Rochelle Crump. She's a U.S. Army veteran, the president and founder of the National Women's Veterans United. And she brought us a panelist, Felice Searles. She's a U.S. Air Force disabled veteran and executive director of the Nancy's Home Care Services. And we want to talk about how the VA is doing with VA resources when it pertains to home health care services, particularly for aging minority and military women veterans. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well. Doing fine. Thank you. How are you doing, Sean?
Doing
good
really
to hear
good.
your voice, and thank you so much for having us today.
Pleasure's all mine. So what's going on? Is there a disparity between what, particularly first with older veterans? We had the Jesse Brown VA on earlier, and they talked about some of the things they're doing now with senior veterans and people who have maybe not getting the attention that they needed. Now the Jesse Brown VA is stepping up and trying to give some resources to older veterans. So what could the VA be doing also in other places to help senior veterans, and particularly women minority veterans?
Well, absolutely, and I'm glad that they're having that conversation because it is very much warranted. And, you know, when you talk about the seniors, you talk about some people who are just not seniors. They're also disabled seniors, which has a different impact, you know, on their livelihood, if you will, and the type of help and services that they need, you know, on a consistent basis. So, and I don't believe that, you know, and I'm glad to hear that they recognize that again, and that means that they will have to do something about it, you know, because sometimes we don't talk about things because if we do, we have to do something about it. That's what we say about the violence, you know, and things like that come up. But let's just say that, you know, when you think about getting old, you know, is not like it used to be when you were able to care for yourself, and we all try to take care of ourselves as long as we can. However, we still wind up needing different things. You know, we start looking around our house, and I just have to use myself as an example. I have stairs in my house. I started looking at the stairs, and I'm saying, okay, well, what's going to happen in a couple of years or more? You know, do I stay here? Do I move? You know, I'm thinking ahead of the game, if you will. What if something happens and, you know, I become disabled right away? You know, how would I take care of myself? Can I rely on my son to have to do that? Will he have to put his own life on hold? You know, you're looking at all of those things that really matter as you get older. And, of course, you know, it comes at you as a surprise. So, you know, you look at the outside of home care services in which, you know, I'm working hard with Felice, and we're working with some outside entities to try to bring more funding into the fold of being able to help those who need it in the home, some with skilled care and some without skilled care. You know, because you look at certain things when they do home care services, and now you're looking at COVID, how that impacted, you know, people going to the homes to get the services they needed. You look at now people are going into homes where no one even knew that senior who's 80 years old is living in squalor, or, you know, they're hoarders. You know, you're looking at things like that. Are they reporting it? What are they doing about it? Do we have something in place that would be able to help them pay for it? You know, it's all those things that we don't necessarily talk about. That's why it's so important today to have this conversation.
I think it is important to have that conversation, particularly because we all, if we are blessed, will be getting older. So, but one of the few things we plan for is getting older, but if you've ever had to take care of someone who was older, that's usually when you get your first wake-up call. If you were fortunate and blessed enough to have been able to take care of an older person and watch the situations that they go through, where they can't get out of bed, or they have difficulty dressing themselves, or cleaning the house up, keeping the house clean, or for being forgetful about stuff, taking their medications, for example. Felice, what can you add to the conversation? What are some of the resources that are out there? Because home health care is a big industry. However, it's very expensive.
Yes. Yes. So, hi. So the VA, they do offer in-home care through the VA Community Care Program. And then you also have the Illinois Department on Aging. If the person is income qualified for services through the Illinois Department on Aging. And then you also have Department of Rehab Services as well, DOORS. So there are some resources available for those who are.
You broke up a little bit. You lost it for a second. Was it Felice? You there?
Yes, this is me.
Yeah, there you go. You lost it for about a second. What was that last sentence you said? You're breaking up again.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Okay. So you have the Illinois Department on Aging. You have the VA. And then you also have Department of Rehabilitation Services.
Okay.
For some resources available for seniors and people with disabilities. But as Rochelle mentioned, I think one of the challenges as a community provider for these services for members or people who need them, I think it's just getting the information. Oftentimes, that you know about these services, aware of these services. Oftentimes, you're not told, or you're not, given the information. Even with the VA, I encountered a lot of veterans who will otherwise qualify or possibly qualify for the services, but because they've never been told that these services are available through the VA for veterans, they just don't know.
And I had a hard time even myself. I remember one time I ran across a vet who needed some home health care. He was by himself, had no family, no beneficiaries, nothing, living by himself, and he had to go into a facility, but he couldn't afford the facility. So the next best thing, since his house was paid for, and he qualified for some kind of tax credits because of some counties, a lot of counties around the country, if you're a veteran, particularly if you're a disabled veteran, particularly if you're a veteran of certain wars, they might even waive your property taxes. If people need to research in there where they live and see what kind of property tax benefits are in their area. So his house is paid for, but he can't live in it because he can't live by himself. So trying to find the care months later, we finally got him at least. And plus, he had never been in the VA system. He'd never applied for any VA benefits other than his tax credits. So what's the best option to go? The Department of Aging you mentioned, the VA, but do all the VA's facilities have the same information?
No, they do not. And I think it depends on the doctor or their nurse. Some of the doctors at the VA. And a social worker. I have some claims because I'm also a community partner with the VA, with both Jesse Brown and Hines. So some will provide that information, and yes, send me the referrals. But oftentimes, like yesterday, as a matter of fact, I went to meet with a family. The husband has early stages of Alzheimer's, a Vietnam veteran. And, of course, they were going to pay out of pocket. They were going to go privately with my agency. So I asked the question, I'm like, do you know this is a service you could possibly get through the VA? And you may not have to pay for it, or at least you get the help with the cost, because they were looking for about, 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. They had no clue that they were, and he actually used the VA. Wow. But they were willing to pay me as an agency, and he is a Vietnam 100% disabled veteran. So I told the wife, I said, you know, what you need to do is call his social worker or call the VA, his doctor, and let his doctor know. Because based on what they look for, they have like a chart, if you will. And if they meet, like, I think it's 3 of the ADLs, activities of daily living, if they need assistance or are unable to do it on their own, then they can possibly qualify. With him being 100%, he would definitely qualify. So I advised her to call her doctor, or his doctor rather, and let him know that, you know, he needs some home care, because she's at home. She's his primary caregiver, and they got all the kids taking turns to assist. So that's a good example. She had no clue. As a Vietnam veteran, he was possibly eligible for some home care services. So I think at the VA, oftentimes it's just, it's just the information not given.
No, and then there's a problem
Rochelle,
in between.
Before we go into that, Rochelle, can people contact because you're a not-for-profit, NWVU.
We're not-for-profit.
Can people go to an organization like yours and get these types of resources, get information about these things?
If they come to our resources, we're actually going to link them to Nancy's daycare, because they are licensed, and if she cannot take them or help them, she basically is going to refer them to another entity. And that's the same thing with us. Before we transfer people, we get all the information, and it's just like not me saying, okay, I'm going to send them to Nancy's daycare. I'm going to contact Nancy's daycare, and I'm going to give them the scenario, and I'm going to give them the income bracket. I'm going to tell them everything, and my question is, can you help this person? You know, it's not just a handoff with no hand.
Right.
You know, instead of sending them to a closed door. We first find out. We do all the running for them, all the calling for them. So they don't have to do anything except being registered for a system that has indicated, based on what you have given us, including income factors and everything, we can help that person. If they can't, then we are going on to the next phase of that.
And
we do that for all referrals that we do. We do not just send people to people without having that exclusive conversation with them in order to make sure that they can be helped.
So are VSOs doing a good job with that?
No, I think, and that's what I was going to kind of allude to, was that I am hoping that they're doing better than what they were initially. They had one person typically handling home care services. You could never contact that person. You leave messages. In fact, that lady was so overwhelmed, and this is the honest God truth. I called the VA, and she answered the phone, hello. That's how overwhelmed she was. I said, is this the VA? Wow. Yes, it is. How can I help you? And I was like, oh, wow. You know, I'm thinking to myself, so when do we pick up a phone and say hello?
Right.
And not indicate who you are and where you are. Wow. You know, but then I found out from her own supervisor that she was the sole person working in that system. And we were calling about something urgent. We had a member who basically was still in the military, but she was transitioning basically out of the military, but she had not been transferred yet. So we were trying to see what kind of services we could get her while she was on that TDR program. You know, not yet ready, the paperwork hadn't gone through, in other words. We're trying to set her up so that she would, you know, be able to do it, you know, to have the home care services that she needed today, because the military didn't provide it. And I think, Felice, you can correct me if I'm wrong, going through the TRICARE was much more expensive for her to even to do that piece to it. and the military pretty much was more interested in trying to get her discharged out the military so that it could become the VA's problem. But it was a smart nurse at the facility hospital where she was that would not allow them to go in that room and make her sign those papers. She said, "You will not do this to my patient." And she did not let the military in. They said she belonged to us. And she told them, "Not today, she doesn't."
Wow.
And then she eventually passed away. But she was able to get all of her honors just because that nurse was thinking and did not allow the military to discharge her.
She passed away.
So, you got some things that are going on that are unique things that are going on that the VA pretty much may not ever be privy of. You know what I'm saying? So it's all types of things that fall on the social worker. But when you only have a few social workers that are working in that entity, you lose sight of what's going on around you in the communities, and you're only dealing with the people who you have in the hospital because that's where they are located. They're in the hospital, and they have to make decisions for those people as well. But they don't do a really, really good job at it because they have too many patients and they have too many other jobs that they do.
That's the thing.
And I'm glad to know that they're doing better. I don't want to take that away from them to say that they're not doing better, because they are doing much better. And I salute them wholeheartedly for doing better. But we still have a long way to go. We still have things that we need to hold them accountable for. And that's why we're having this conversation today also.
But it seems like the big issue is, and this is not just with the VA but across the country, is that we have an aging global population, particularly here in the United States and Western country. So more and more people are aging. We have people living longer. And it seems like a lot of industries, corporate America, I think, has already figured this out. They're ahead of the game, it seems like. They're getting stuff, getting marketing ready. You're seeing AARP commercials on every time we turn around on TV. They're already aware of this, and they have their marketing schemes all in line. The VA seems like, and a lot of other places, have to catch up.
But remember, Social Security has been talking about this for a long time.
Yes, exactly.
Preparing us for the wrath of, the next generations who will not really be able to enjoy Social Security money to the fullest.
Right, exactly. We might have a day we wake up where there's 2 seniors for every person who's not a senior. Where the majority of the population will be a senior population here in America. So you got to get things online. You got to start. So what is in the military is even more so, because the military population is shrinking, and we're an aging population at the same time. So we have 22 million, roughly 21 million, roughly veterans. More than half, something like 65%, I believe, is actually closer, are seniors.
Yes. Another challenge
I saw was 11 million that are over 60 years old.
Another challenge too I see with it. Oh, that's okay, Rochelle. One of the other things, even with the amongst the veterans that I have within my agency that have been approved for home care services through the VA. I think too the VA, they've been approved and they need care. Some live alone, but the VA will only authorize them 3 hours a week, 6 hours a week.
That's what I heard. There was something about
and that is, I mean, I have a few. One gentleman, he's unable to get himself cleaned in the morning. He's unable to put his clothes on. He has dementia. Every morning when the caregiver, she only goes 3 days a week, but when she show up, she has to help him get dressed. It hurts him just to walk to the bathroom. And he only gets about 6 hours a week. I even talked to his social worker, and it's like that's all they want to give him. And to me, it's like he needs more care. He needs more help. He lives alone. He's a single Vietnam veteran. He lives alone, really don't have family to help.
Let me ask you this, though. Let me jump this. Ask you this one question: Is that because there's not enough resources or not enough people to allocate that kind of time that he needs? Or is it because they're just being stingy with the hours they want to pay for?
I think it's been stingy. It's not so much the people. I think they just really been stingy with the hours. I think that has a lot to do with it.
And then there's other organizations like this was actually something the VA actually mentioned to me which I thought about for, like I said, a particular friend of mine that passed away, but at that time needed care, using Catholic charities, using other non-for-profits to try to step in and fill that gap and fill that void. So it leads me to my next question is, does the VA pay for, this is my last question because we're running out of time, does the VA pay for someone else to come in to provide cooking, cleaning, helping you straighten your house, take your medicine, things like that, take you to the doctor?
No. So some of my veterans, they do, you can actually, I call it double dip, so you can also receive if you're qualified. But with the Department on Aging, they actually have stricter qualifications than even the VA.
Wow.
In terms of it's based on income. Now, a lot of my vets are eligible for it, so a lot of vets do substitute some of the hours. You know, maybe the VA give them 6 and they may get 15 through the Department on Aging.
Okay.
So I do have some like that. But I still believe, though, it's just not enough, you know. I mean, some of my vets, they really and truly need at least, 8 hours a day. You know, someone not just in the morning, but maybe in the evening as well, help them get in bed. And they just, I mean, some have family to help, but those that don't have family, they don't have really anyone to assist them. They're pretty much left to their own devices. So I think that's another challenge. With the aging population, the growing need, and the cost is very expensive to try to pay out of pocket. And most, I mean, not just veterans, but people in general, it's unless you prepare for that. It can, you got other medical expenses and then your own just day-to-day living to, provide for yourself. Having home care is tough. And most seniors want to stay home. They don't want to go to a nursing home. And that's kind of the option for so many who kind of can, if with the right care, stay home. But they're almost forced to a nursing home or some kind of facility because it's just too costly for them.
And on that note, Felice Searles, she's a U.S. Air Force disabled veteran and executive director of Nancy's Home Care Services. And Rochelle Crump, thank you for coming back, U.S. Army veteran, president and founder of National Women's Veterans United. Thank you for your time and all the information you gave us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you as well.
This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.
Resources and referrals are provided intentionally every Saturday to empower our military population on WVON 1690 AM, the iHeart Radio app from 4 to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Please visit our website at www.americashg.org. What's going on? What's going on? Hi, this is Cliff Kelley, the host of America's Heroes Group. If you or a loved one has been injured in an accident or the result of malpractice, you have only one chance to get the compensation you deserve. You need a law firm you can trust with experience and resources who will fight on your behalf. With a proven track record of excellence both in and out of the courtroom, call Seidman, Margulis, and Fairman at 312-781-1977 for a free consultation, or visit SeidmanLaw.net. That's Seidman, SEIDMAN, law.net.
Hello, this is Darren Jeffrey. I was the course creator for American Ninja Warrior on NBC. I'm also a founding board member for the Rick Harriman Foundation, or RHF. RHF is proud to partner with America's Heroes Group in bringing you this year's RHF Ninja Warrior O course, free for active and retired military families. September 10th and 17th at Rick's Place, located 5 minutes from the front gate of Fort Bragg, Fayetteville, North Carolina. If you're a ninja or wish to volunteer at this event, visit rhfnow.org/ninja and register. If you would like to thank these incredible men and women in uniform and their families, be a sponsor. Visit rhfnow.org/sponsor and come on out and meet the RHF family.
Service Women Who Serve is proud to partner with Cliff Kelley and the American Heroes Group as an influencer of social change through advocacy, activism, and examination of legacy for military and veterans. We stand as paradigm-shifting thought leaders, believing social justice is grounded in hope.
Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelley and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. The Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Welcome back to America's Heroes Group, a roundtable with our partner, Veterans Legislative Voice. August is National Wellness Month. Be well. Saturday, August 13th, 2022. Our host is Cliff Kelley. My name is Sean Claiborne. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. We have our partner on the line, Ms. Stephanie Collada. She's a U.S. Army Reserve Sergeant, First Class, a veteran and founder of and creator of the Veterans Legislative Voice. How you doing, Stephanie?
Doing great. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We had this historic legislation that has been passed the other day. We have the PACT Act, the Promise to Address Comprehensive Toxins Act, which is something that is, something we've needed for a long, long time, for decades. Think maybe we could do things more, do things a little bit better going forward in the future. But this is at least a step in the right direction. So what do we have to talk about? What is the first thing you want to bring up about this?
Well, there's been a lot of contention ever since there was the issue in the Senate. So honoring our PACT Act is a really great thing. It's a landmark act and bill for many veterans that's going to be included, not just post 9/11, but this includes Gulf War veterans as well. They are also establishing a presumption for 2 more conditions for Agent Orange. So it's really big and awesome. But what happened a couple weeks ago was when the Senate had the Republicans of the Senate side had changed their vote from yay to nay. They had already voted on this bill, but there was an ad that was an addition to the bill that they didn't agree with. And there was a couple of different things to go on with that.
What was the addition? I heard about that. I remember, and I saw the video of Pat Toomey, a senator from Pennsylvania, who was complaining about, money there was mandatory funding versus discretionary funding he was talking about. Which didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but what was what was put in and taken out, or what was the issue?
Okay, so for funding for bills and acts and laws, basically you must have to specify whether the funding for these things are mandatory or direct, which was the original term that they used for this in the bill, or discretionary, which kind of falls into the category of nice to have. If we got enough money, we'll use it. And that was actually discretionary term for this funding was never actually in the bill at any point. It was actually direct spending. So what they did when the bill has gone back and forth between the House and the Senate because they kept adding edits and basically clarifying and adding things to correct some issues in there. So they changed it from direct to mandatory for the funding. And one of the reasons why they did this was because it was for a $400 billion funding for VA infrastructure. A couple months back, there was a commission to actually study all the infrastructure for the VA and what would be coming forward with predictions on where the veterans will be, what things that we need in the future, whether they're dying out in some locations or they're growing in another location, those type of things. That commission was actually put in place from the Mission Act of 2018. And so the VA had to brief Congress. Well, this recommendation list also included the closure or the downgrade of veterans hospitals and clinics because the populations are dwindling and they foresee it going even lower. And so a lot of people became upset with that. Legitimately, honestly, if I found out my VA was downgrading or getting smaller, I would be upset because that means my individual care would probably diminish. So I understand that. But the thing is that they also canceled the entire commission on everything. So the improvements that the VA recommended was canceled. And so this funding that was added in there, which Pat Toomey has also implied that it's pork barrel spending, and also Ted Cruz said the same thing, that it's pork barrel spending and it's not for veterans. Well, actually, it is for veterans because it's for the infrastructure. It's opening and leasing of buildings for outpatient clinics. And the funny part that I love to say about I like to point out about the pork barrel spending accusation is that some of these outpatient clinics and leasing of federal buildings for the VA is actually in some of the states of the senators that voted no against the bill.
Right. You have a lot of military installations and a lot of clinics in red states. The thing that I thought was weird is that, so walk me through this process. So from what I understood from his argument, Pat Toomey's argument, was that if it goes to being considered what he said was mandatory spending, that there would be no cap on spending. So they would have, I'm assuming, a budget every year of this is what we're going to allocate for this particular purpose, for something like the PACT Act. Mm-hmm. And then when that budget, but that budget could go into whatever it needs to be. So mandatory spending are things that the government has to pay for. There is no debate or argument. It has to be done, which to me sounds like, taking care of veterans' health and taking care of veterans' needs, that's something you have to do. That's not something that should be, do we have the money this week or not? No, the government's going to shut down next week anyway, so no payments today. It should be something that's mandatory, in my opinion, from what I see. Now, but I think it seemed like what he was trying to say was that, well, what if there's more money than what's necessary? Then that extra money could be used for anything. It could be used for, pork belly spending, building a new road, or doing whatever, stuff that's not necessarily related to veterans. Is there any validity to to that argument or what he said?
No, because I push anyone that do not agree with me to look up the PAC Act on Congress.gov, because you can read the most up-to-date text on there, and it's it's Senate Bill 3373, I believe, because I'm looking at the comparison bill or the companion bill right now. Apologies. But the Senate Bill 3373 has included specifically the funding towards the buildings, towards the leasing of buildings. And the thing is that Secretary McDonough had already put in all of these recommendations. They already have done the studies on how much it's going to cost. So that's what's put forward. Often when there is money left over, that is also either held over or they use it for something else. And honestly, pork barrel spending is a very poor accusation for it, because why would you vote for a bill that would actually bring clinics to your state and add more employment? It would support your veterans better. I don't understand that complete argument that he tries to make there.
It seems kind of confusing. Like I said, at best, it was confusing at best. And there's, unfortunately, a lot of misinformation out there, and I think you've done a good job of dispelling what was going on, because you answered the question direct, which did make a lot of sense from Jump Street. Almost, to me, it looked like a stall tactic. That's all I'd read it as. From the time he stood up to the time he sat down, that was basically a stall tactic to keep this from going through, or maybe to change it in some kind of way, or get something else added to it. Maybe they want it or whatever. Who knows what the real deal is?
Well, no, there's actually a couple of theories on that, and of course it's coming from the Democrats. But the thing is that Senator Chuck Schumer had actually completed a deal for that, the Inflammation Act that includes climate change things, it includes health care and a lot of other things. Well, they were able to get a deal to get it to pass. And Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, did not realize that they were successsome with this. So there was a number of senators that had followed his lead in voting against this bill. So some people see this as retaliation, which of course had a big backlash. And so it was a very contested, very interesting situation. And if you guys had seen the video, the recording of the vote that they did, a lot of people point out, Ted Cruz had actually fist bumped with another Republican senator, and I'm trying to remember his name, right after he voted nay for the veterans.
Wow.
A lot of people were pissed about that.
It's sad. Politics never ends. So the thing of it is that, I mean, this had a lot of national attention, and it seemed, I think, to most people, to the average American, it seemed like something that was so deplorable that veterans who were having difficulty breathing and who were also being diagnosed with cancer were having difficulty getting the treatment and care that they needed to live.
Yes, and the thing I'm really happy about this bill, though, is that it includes a well-rounded, broad spectrum of cancers that you could get by serving in the Gulf War or post 9/11 operations. They include head cancers of any type, neck cancers of any type, respiratory, gastrointestinal, even reproductive cancers, which is a big one for the women veterans, because that should include breast cancer, uterine cancer, a lot of other things that they have actually have a higher increase, higher possibility of developing. Breast cancer, I've said it before, they have women veterans, and really all veterans have the increased risk by 20 to 40% of developing breast cancer.
Wow. And so on that note, I mean, it's something, definitely we have to acknowledge all the people that passed away. And before this, that was ever even something that passed. This bill is actually on the books. I mean, a lot of veterans, thousands of veterans have passed away. I have no idea. I couldn't even begin to even fathom, how many, maybe tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even of people that passed away because they didn't either know about it and they got sick, or they knew about it and trying to get treatment but couldn't get the aid that they needed. And then another thing too is after you also got to point out is that I have to really give Jon Stewart credit.
Yes,
he did a lot. I mean, for a lot of crap he gets for being a comedian and blah 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 and all stuff like that and doing fake news and making fun of the news, that was something really really courageous and really honorable. I mean, for him as a veteran, and to thank him, for doing that and taking the time and attention to get to know this topic and this problem. And going on and using his platform, using the influences and the connections he's got to really bring attention to this issue.
Yes,
it's
amazing.
And the families too, the families that that have passed, that have created all these foundations and organizations around this topic. Yeah.
There's a veteran to note is Dr. Kate Thomas Hendricks. She was a Marine officer, and she deployed to Iraq. And after she got out, she actually went and got her PhD. She was a mental health professional, so she had advocated for mental health for veterans for a while until her doctor had suggested that she gets a checkup for a monogamy. I cannot pronounce it right, but for just a check for breast cancer. And she's like, well, why? I'm only 34. And the doctor is like, yeah, but I've been seeing a lot of women younger than 40 actually having breast cancer, so let's do a check. She had stage 4 breast cancer after they finished it. And then they had to do, because it was stage 4, that's metastatic, so they did an MRI scan of her entire body. And she had cancer from the top of her head to the bottom of her toes. And her doctors had said it was like they dipped her in a vat of toxic chemicals.
Wow.
Because it was everywhere. She passed, sadly, this past April at 38, and she left behind her husband and children. And it's so sad. And a lot of people keep fighting in her name because of it.
Wow. And then the Torres family, the Rosie Torres, Leroy Torres in Texas, I believe they're from, who had an issue with this, and they were her husband couldn't get benefits and was fighting and created a whole movement around it. Then the doctor was Dr. Robert Miller from Vanderbilt, who started looking at stuff and saying, hey, that looks kind of funny. Why is that there? And they started, finding out, and then I guess they came out with the diagnosis of I still don't understand this. I think it's restrictive bronchitis, I think it's called.
Yes. Well, there's a number of rare lung conditions and lung cancers that veterans that have gone to the Middle East contract at a higher rate. I cannot find the numbers for it, but it's pretty darn high.
Man, that's crazy.
At least 40% of I have found the numbers of how many have claimed for lung conditions from their tours to the Middle East, and that is 40% of all veterans that had deployed. They filed for something that has to do with respiratory and lungs.
Wow. Now you were deployed. Now, do you have concerns for your own health and safety?
Yes, very much so. I had actually had a weird reaction after I came back. I actually developed allergies to a lot of different things that I never was allergic to before. So it's really weird. I'm allergic to yeast, eggs, eggplant, celery, horses, cockroaches, dogs. I've never been allergic to any of those things. I've actually used to live with all of those things. So yes, weird. I feel like a ticking time bomb, and I actually had to go through a test because a friend of mine had recently developed stage 4 esophageal cancer. He called me up because we've deployed and worked in the same areas. And so I asked him, I'm like, hey, I've got this weird thing happening. Is that similar? And he said, yep. So I went in, and thankfully my doctors took it very seriously, got me referred off to the right people, got the endoscopy and a ton of different things. And I got checked, and I'm fine, but I got to go in every so often to get checked anyways, just in case. And it's so scary.
And the thing about it is, like, a lot of people don't understand who've never been in the military, is that you can be exposed to something in your 20s that may not affect you to your, like, in your 50s or 60s. And when you're young, coming back from deployment or coming back out of or getting discharged from the military, when you're young and you're healthy, you don't really think about what your life is going to be like 10, 20, 30 years down the road. You're living life and doing your thing, trying to, become a civilian again. And the next thing you know, you're having your body's falling apart at 45, and you're like, what's going on?
Yep. I mean, you're talking to somebody that was critically injured at 22, recovered, I thought, and then I kept getting it re-injured after my tours, and I'm fully disabled now because of the injury I've had to my neck and head, and it's pretty scary at times. I got hit by a drunk driver, which had made things worse. So people don't realize that those little things can affect you so far in the future. It's crazy.
So how possible, now we've talked about this in the past, and I go on my soapbox again, and I say this because the issue that I have is, and it's kind of confusing, I think, and I think about this, and I've had conversations outside the show about this. I think it's confusing to people that are civilians, even people that are in the military who've never really had or used the VA system and don't know and how it is different everywhere around the country. It's not the same in every state. It's not the same in every city.
No.
Why is it that we have to prove that if you're feeling an ailment or you have something that's documented that says, okay, you definitely have something that's wrong with you, why do you have to prove that that's service connected? Why is that process even in place? The PACT Act is a bill that actually says for this specific situation, when it comes to toxic exposure, you don't have to prove. It's presumptive that you were there and that you got it. Why do we have to presume anything for any type of situation? If you've already signed up and you spent your time in the military and you put your body at stake, I can be an NFL athlete.
Yep.
Okay, and I can go be in the NFL, and I could have had not been injured not one time when I was on the football field, but if I step out and break my finger at a cocktail party, guess NFL's paying for that 20, 30 years later. They don't care. They're going to get your cover for life.
Yeah, because you're also winning them a whole ton of money. It's basically, they had started writing it based off of the regular civilian disability and like workers' compensation. They had compared that standard to that they use on the civilian side because, I used to work at a greenhouse, and I had tripped over one of the carts and busted my knee, and I had workman's comp. I went and got that checked out, and if I had permanent damage to that, I would get compensated. But that's how they have wrote the standard. And I knew you were going to bring this up again because I found this congressional bill, and it's called Guaranteeing Health Care Access to Personnel Who Served Act, House Bill 4624. And this would amend Title 38 of the United States Code to improve access to health care for veterans and other purposes. It's a long bill, and I hope to do more of a study of it at another time, but I wanted to point that out to you because I know this is something that you advocate for.
Yeah, because, My thing is, if you and then going back to the NFL, because I already know you got the haters out there going to say, well, they're scoring touchdowns, man. That's so important. Like, they're making all this money and stuff. I mean, how can you compare the two? Well, people are dying for this country. For that guy to be able to catch that ball, thank a veteran.
Yeah, you're not kidding about that one.
So the sacrifices that people and this is you're putting your body, literally putting your body in harm's way in a situation where going in, they tell you may not come back home.
Yes. Yeah. Even with training, I mean, we see it all the time that people have died while in training on the stateside or critically injured, and it's really scary. And so, a lot of people don't realize what we face and what we risk every day.
And then you could say, well, why is this necessary? Well, the thing is, Russia just invaded Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
You have cartels in South America that will love the go across our borders and do a lot of harm to us and change our system of government and have more money, power, and influence if they could. Yep.
China and Russia also with the cyber warfare and things, those types of stuff that can make a lot of changes. I mean, cyber warfare is something that has been really taken off in the military, and that's something that they are really focusing on now too, not just in person or even there, because now we have drones that can do all of the things remotely. So the military does a lot more than a lot of people don't realize.
And we do that, a lot of that stuff before you even wake up in the morning. Before you got your coffee in the morning, think a veteran.
Yes.
Just think a veteran. Let's just say, pour a little bit out for a veteran one day when you're getting some coffee at Starbucks or something like that,
Yeah.
We don't ask for much. We just want health care. That's all we're asking for. Nobody's asking for a ton of money. We barely get paid well. All we're looking for is, why is it, so when we come out, you have the infrastructure already in place. You have hospitals and VA systems all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
You have military bases that have hospitals and things. You have the training. You have people. I was in a medical company. I was a mechanic in a medical company. I mean, there were trained nurses, doctors. Dr. Arnold was a surgeon. Dr. Arnold could do surgery, and while he's driving a car, he can do surgery.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We have the people and the tools and resources to do this type of stuff. So why is it, you're out of the military, and we don't want to be bothered with that, and it doesn't cost extra money. It's not like we're talking about crazy money.
No, it's not. And the thing is that for preventative, it actually saves more in the long run. Is if you pretty much conduct preventative care, dental, and other things to actually prevent anything that may happen or get worse, it actually is a bigger payoff in the end. You save a ton more money for the veterans and for the government, honestly, because then they're not having to pay out for long-term residential care that those veterans may become eligible for, that have to be nursed 24/7. So those type of things could actually save a lot in the end.
I really appreciate you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Stephanie, I would like to see what could be done. Are you still there, Steph?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry. My cat is begging for attention. So
oh, my
go
gosh.
ahead.
Hi, kitty.
Yeah.
I would like to see what could be done in terms of the Ferens doctrine, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's spelled F-E-R-E-S doctrine. It prevents... it prevents service members, veterans, or just military active members from suing based on, it could be malpractice, military's sexual assault. It prevents them from being whole in terms of having that law that would allow them to pursue what has been done. They need to something needs to be done. I think holistically, the military population needs to do something to ask them to change or amend that.
It's going down. It's chipping off little by little. The Ferris Doctrine is, small strides happening. A couple years ago, actually, Vanessa Guillen's lawyer, their family's lawyer, was actually one that had won just a little part of a win against suing against the government for malpractice. And then most recently, there was another one in the Ninth Circuit They just won a good case that had been protected by the fears doctrine. Mm-hmm. There's just a little bit inches by inches that we think that is going to really claw the thing away in the next couple of years. So yes, there's been a great advances on that.
I just read, and I think I sent you that article when I saw it, that some judge stated that this military lady has the right to sue based on based on military sexual trauma, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it is, and that's actually, I know one of the lawyers that had helped out with that one, and so I think it was that one, and so yeah, we're going to see a trampling of the fears doctrine going away. It's just got to go slow by slow, though.
And I'm so proud that here on America's Heroes Group, I became aware that through our legal advisory board member, Steve Seitman. We do a segment with him every fourth Saturday called Legally Speaking with Steve. He was the first one to address that I was aware of like 3 years ago. So kudos to Steve. Yes. That's what we do here, staff, because of you and other partners and Roundtable panelists. We bring connected information to the disconnected. That's what we specialize in, and we do it with excellence. Without worrying about who's going to like it, because we don't care what you like. We care about the resources and information that our military family personnel need to live the life they've earned through service. Yeah. So bravo, Steph. Great show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. To the co-host, Mr. Sean Claiborne. To our digital media producer, the one and only Ivan Ortega, Scouts Honor Production. To our technical producer, Lady J. We are a team here at America's Heroes Group, and it ain't one person, it's a team. Mm-hmm. And because of you, the listening audience, you make us who we are. Please feel free to call our office regarding questions or concerns at 312-803-2618. We're located at 155 North Wecker Drive, Suite 4250, Chicago, Illinois 60606. To our print media partner, Mrs. Dorothy Lavelle and the Chicago Crusaders, you can read that fabulous article every week in the Chicago Crusaders, called the Chicago Crusaders, and it's titled Voices, 773-752-2500, and request a subscription. Okay, it's that time of the year. Flu season has now become COVID-19 season. It is what it is. Let's get boosted. Let's get vaccinated. Let's try to have a better winter this year, or fall winter, than we had last year. It's okay. Your body's not going to explode. Nothing's going to happen. Let's just stay healthy and have a productive fall season and winter season that's approaching. To all of you all, on behalf of America's Heroes Group, have a blessed weekend.
Welcome to America's Heroes Group. Hear your voice, where we connect the disconnected intentionally.